Every time I come to Great Falls Park, I come to this particular location by the third overlook before I start my hike. I want to get a sense of the light, get a sense of how much water is coming over the falls, because it can be a tremendous difference. In the spring, the water has a greenish yellow hue to it as it's full of oxygen and the fish are running at the base of the falls. Or it could be after a storm, in which you've got water that looks almost like cream coffee as it's coming down, bringing all sorts of storm debris with it. Tree trunks are being tossed about. They look like fishing corks as they bob up and down right by you here at the overlook. Hello, my name is Walt Lwarence. I'm a photographer, live in Great Falls, and today we're in my studio at the Artist's Atelier in the Village Green Center of Great Falls. Been a photographer my whole life, but I've been really a serious photographer, I would say, in the last 15 years. But I want to take you back to how it all got started. My family moved around a lot as I was growing up. I went to college for 4 years at the University of Maine, went in the Navy for 4 years, spent a year of that in Morocco, lived overseas for 4 years, in Paris and Germany, and then went to graduate school in California. And in '71, moved to the Northern Virginia area here in McLean. And then in '77, I built a house in the woods here at Great Falls. And that's where it all got started. I've had cameras all my life, starting with Brownie Hawkeye. My first 35mm camera I purchased from my CO in the Navy, which was a Kodak Bellows camera. And he had purchased that during flying the Berlin airlift in 1948. From then on, I moved to other 35mm, Minolta, Nikon, and today I shoot a Canon. But in all this photography, from basically when I settled here in Great Falls till I retired in 2000, I would call it tourist photography, travel photography. In my travels, I just carried the camera with me and took pictures of various buildings and monuments and landscapes as I moved around. One of the prime motivators for what I do has been over this long period of time, 20 to 40 years. I've seen so much of this area disappear. The bulldozers have come in, taken down landmarks, they've taken down farms, large tracts of land, and housing developments have gone in. So upon my retirement, I really wanted to capture as much of what was left of the natural beauty of the place, as well as some of the old provincial beauty, some of the old buildings. We had a Thelma's Country Store, which is now where the Brightview retirement community stands. I've sort of developed this mission to try to capture as much of this with my camera as I could. And I would go back many times to the same spots, trying to photograph under different lighting conditions, different weather conditions, and we get many different images. And then sometimes you come back with nothing, and then go back out again at a different season or a different time of day, and I make a mental note to do so. My wife came up with this wonderful phrase that was gone so much. She says, "I think the camera is your mistress." I've done a lot of hiking in the Great Falls National Park and in the Riverbend which is a county park. And up at Riverbend Park, they had a sign hanging out there that says you can rent a fishing boat with a guide, and they'll provide all the fishing equipment for you. So I went and approached them a few years ago, and I said, suppose I didn't want to fish, but I wanted to photograph. Would you still take a photographer out in the boat with a guide? Well, the obvious answer was yes. And so I've made a great number of trips on the river with this fishing guide. And we go out early in the morning or late in the afternoon and get among the islands out there and just shut the engine off, shut the motor off, and drift down with the currents through these islands. And it's a whole different world out there. It's quiet. There's a lot of bird life. You get shots like this of these beautiful great egrets. I never knew these great egrets were in this area until I found them on the river. You have bald eagles, great blue herons, all kinds of ducks and geese, depending upon the season of the year. It is truly a different world, and it's hard to imagine that you're out there. You could be anywhere in the United States, and yet here you are, 15 miles from the nation's capital. A key element of my photography is the inclusion of water in the image. Water can change the effect dramatically, but water comes in many forms: rain, snow, fog, ice, mist, just flowing water, still water for reflections. For example, in this shot, this is what my bedroom window looked like one January morning when we had no heat in the house. So my first thought was to grab my camera before I called the heating contractor. With respect to the falls itself, this shot here was taken in early October morning with a 10-second exposure, which gives you this movement, this smoothing and soap-like effect of the water going over the falls. This shot here, fog in the background, gives a completely different feel than if it were taken in full sunlight. Reflections are a key part of my imagery as well. For example, this shot here taken in Great Falls Park, you get two birds for one shot. This shot here taken at Riverbend Park from a boat, you get the reflections off of that pump house that sits on the Maryland shore. Reflections can really add an element of confusion because sometimes when you're looking at an image, you're not sure, is it the reflection I'm looking at or is it the primary object? This shot here taken down at water level in Great Falls Park. In my younger years when I could crawl down there, took right at water level, and you can see with the motion of the water, it almost looks like brush strokes in the photography, the brush strokes of a painter. After living here for 40 years, I truly feel attached to this place called Great Falls, as I've never felt about any place else that I've lived. I like the small town feel. It is only 15 miles from the heart of Washington, D.C. I can go out with my camera and tripod on the spur of the moment and experiment in different weather conditions, different lighting conditions, to try to capture more interesting images of the wildlife, the landscapes, and the landmarks that surround our daily lives. When someone asks me, "Where are you from?" I now respond with Great Falls, rather than where I was born. What can I say? The place has captured my soul.